I always believed there were moments in life that would finally force people to see you. Moments so undeniable that even the ones who spent years overlooking you would have no choice but to stop and look straight at you. For me, that moment was supposed to be graduation day, not just any graduation. Law school, 7 years of debt, internships that paid nothing, nights I slept on the floor of my tiny apartment because my back hurt too much to climb into bed, mornings fueled by gas station, coffee and panic. I was 29 years old, and about to become the first attorney in my entire family. I thought that when someone said Attorney Emily Harper into a microphone, my parents would be sitting in the front row, clapping too loud, crying a little too hard, finally proud in a way they never had been before. That belief is embarrassing now. If you had asked me the night before graduation who I was doing this for, I would have said myself. But the truth was messier. I wanted their approval. I wanted proof that all those years of being the responsible one, the quiet one, the one who never asked for much, had been worth it. I wanted one day where I was not an afterthought. Graduation morning I woke up before my alarm, heart racing like I had already missed something important. The room was still dark, and for a few seconds I let myself pretend nothing was about to happen. Then it hit me. This was the day. I lay there staring at the ceiling, replaying the same fantasy I had carried for years. My mom waving at me from the crowd, my dad leaning into the aisle with his phone held too high, zoomed in too far, cutting off half my head, my younger brother joking that he knew I would make it, even if he never said it out loud before. That image had kept me going more times than I liked to admit. I got ready slowly. Shower, pressed suit, the black graduation gown hanging on the back of the door like it belonged to someone more important than me. I pinned my cap and adjusted the tassel in the mirror, trying to see myself the way I hoped they would. Someone worth showing up for. I had even decorated the top of my cap the night before, with neat white letters. First attorney in the family. At the time, it felt proud. That morning it felt like a question. My phone buzzed on the dresser. Mom. Relief hit me so fast I almost laughed. Of course she was calling. Of course they were already on their way. I answered with a smile already in my voice. Hey, are you guys close? I asked. Traffic looks rough around campus, so you might want to park early. There was a pause. Not a bad connection pause. A deliberate one. Sweetie, my mom said finally, and her voice had that tone she used when she was about to cancel plans. Listen, we need to talk. My stomach dropped. She explained it quickly, like if she said it fast enough, it would sound reasonable. They had mixed up the dates. My brother was hosting an engagement brunch that morning. Clients were coming. People were already invited. My dad had been planning it for weeks. It would be rude to cancel now. I waited for the part where she said, but of course we will still come. It never came. You are still coming, right? I asked. To my graduation. Another pause. Then a sigh. We will celebrate later, she said. Next weekend. Dinner. Photos. It will be the same thing. It was not the same thing, and she knew it. Before I could answer, my dad took the phone. His voice was calm, almost bored, like we were discussing a schedule mix-up at the dentist. Emily, he said, do not start. We are proud of you. This is a big accomplishment, but it is just a ceremony. You already did the hard part. Just a ceremony. That was when something inside me went still. Not angry, not sad, empty in a way that felt permanent. If it is just a ceremony, I said quietly, then why does everyone else's family show up? He sighed like I was being difficult on purpose. You are being dramatic, he said. We will make it up to you. That sentence followed me my entire life. Do not be dramatic. It was what they said when they left my school play early, when they missed parent nights, when my achievements made them uncomfortable because they required effort. I said okay. My voice did not shake. That surprised me. Have fun at the brunch. I ended the call before anyone could say anything else. I stood there for a long time staring at my reflection in the mirror. Cap on, gown ready, first attorney in the family written across my head like a joke no one else would see. I did not cry. Not yet. I drove to campus alone, parked between cars covered in congratulatory messages written in bright marker. Families spilled out laughing and hugging, holding flowers and balloons. I walked past them by myself. Inside the auditorium, the noise hit me all at once. Cheers, music, excited voices. I found my seat in the graduate section. 2 empty chairs behind me were marked, reserved for family. I left them empty. When the dean asked us to stand and wave at our families, The room exploded with movement. Phones lifted, names shouted. I turned around and looked at the space where my parents should have been. Strangers stared back at me. Right then I understood something that would change the rest of my life. This was not about one missed day. This was about a pattern, and that pattern had just reached its loudest moment. If your parents skipped the biggest day of your life and told you not to be dramatic about it, would you swallow it and move on? Or would that be the day you finally stopped waiting for them to show up? When people ask me now when everything changed, they expect me to say it was the moment my parents did not show up. That is not true. The real shift happened later, in the quiet space after the phone call ended, the moment when the line went dead, and I realized I was standing alone in my bedroom, dressed for a future my family had already decided was not worth rearranging their plans for. That was when I stopped hearing silence as something accidental. I started hearing it as a choice. I sat on the edge of my bed with my phone still in my hand, staring at the black screen like it might light up again and fix everything. Part of me waited for a second call, a laugh, a just kidding, we are already in the car. But nothing came. Just the hum of the air conditioner and the sound of my own breathing, slow and shallow like my body was bracing for impact that had already happened. I should have cried then. That would have made sense. But instead, my mind started doing something worse. It started replaying. Every time they said, "Do not be dramatic." Every time I adjusted my expectations to keep the peace. Every time I told myself they would show up next time because this time was complicated, busy, bad timing. I realized how much of my life had been built around making myself smaller, so other people would not feel inconvenienced by my needs. I stood up and walked back to the mirror. The cap sat crooked on my head. The tassel brushed my cheek when I turned. I fixed it, then laughed quietly at myself. Who was I fixing this for? There was no one coming to see it. My phone buzzed again, and for half a second my heart jumped. It was my brother. A photo appeared on my screen. Long table, white tablecloths, champagne glasses catching the light, my parents in the background, my dad mid-laugh, my mom leaning towards someone I did not recognize. Everyone looked relaxed, happy, present. "Wish you were here," the caption said. I checked the timestamp. It was from 10 minutes ago, the same 10 minutes I had spent standing in my bedroom, trying to decide if my pain was reasonable enough to deserve space. That was the moment I understood something I had never allowed myself to fully say out loud. They had not mixed up the dates, they had decided. The brunch mattered more, the optics mattered more, my brother mattered more, and I was expected to understand. I did not respond. I did not like the photo. I turned my phone face down on the dresser like it had offended me personally. The drive to campus felt unreal, like I was watching someone else through the windshield. Traffic moved, lights changed. The world did not pause just because something important had cracked inside me. Families crowded the sidewalks near the auditorium, parents adjusting ties, mothers fixing caps, people laughing loudly, already emotional before anything had even happened yet. I parked and sat in my car for a long minute, hands gripping the steering wheel, watching a family take selfies in front of a congratulatory banner. I wondered if my parents would post something later, a picture taken days from now, a caption about how proud they were, as if presents could be retroactively applied. Inside the auditorium, the noise swallowed me whole. Applause echoed off the walls, names were shouted across rows. I found my seat among the other graduates, all of us lined up in black gowns, all of us pretending we were calm. The empty seats behind me stared back like an accusation. When the ceremony began, I tried to focus. I really did. I told myself this was still my moment, that I had earned it regardless of who was watching. But every time applause erupted for someone else, a tiny part of me noticed the way families leaned forward when it was their child, the way phones lifted automatically, the way love seemed so loud and effortless. My phone buzzed again. Another photo. Same table, same smiles. This time my dad held up a glass toward the camera. My mom was mid-bite, laughing at something someone said off-screen. This one came with a message from my mother. "We will celebrate properly next weekend. Stop overthinking this." Overthinking. That word landed the same way dramatic always had. A way to dismiss without listening. A way to make my reaction the problem instead of their action. I did not reply. If you have ever been told your pain is too much while someone else's convenience is treated like a priority, you know what that moment feels like. It is not explosive. It is quiet. It is the sound of something rearranging itself permanently. By the time they called my name later that day, I was already different from the person who woke up that morning. I walked across the stage smiling, because that is what you do. I shook hands because it was expected. I accepted the diploma, because I earned it. But somewhere between the phone call and the applause, I stopped waiting. I stopped believing that if I just achieved enough, they would finally choose me. That belief had carried me through law school. It had fueled me through exhaustion and debt and doubt. And in one calm sentence spoken by my father, it died. If you are wondering when a person decides to walk away from their family, it is rarely in a moment of screaming. It is in moments like this, when you realize that even at your highest, you are still optional. And once you see that clearly, you can never unsee it. People like to imagine that the hardest part of being abandoned is the moment it happens. The call, the excuse, the words that land wrong and never quite leave your chest. But the truth is quieter than that. The hardest part is what comes after. The stretch of time where nothing dramatic happens at all, and you are forced to sit inside the reality that everyone else keeps pretending is not there. By the time the ceremony reached the middle, my body had settled into a strange calm. Not peace, more like numbness. I stopped checking my phone because I already knew what I would see. Smiling faces, plates of food, my parents fully present somewhere else. The dean droned on about perseverance and sacrifice, about families who supported us along the way. The words floated through the room like a script written for someone else. I watched rows of graduates ahead of me wipe their eyes, turn around, wave at the crowd. Every few seconds the audience erupted when a familiar name was called. The applause came in waves, loud, proud, certain. I clapped when it was appropriate, smiled when cameras panned our direction. I did everything right. That was my specialty. Behind me, the 2 seats with reserved family signs remained untouched. No coats draped over them, no purses at their feet. Just empty fabric and plastic, holding space for people who chose not to fill it. When we were asked to stand and turn toward our families, I hesitated for half a second. Everyone else moved automatically. Arms lifted, phones flashed, names echoed across the hall. I turned with them and scanned the crowd even though I knew better. I saw a man holding a baby, a woman crying into her husband's shoulder, a little girl waving too hard, nearly losing her balance. I did not see my parents. My hand lifted halfway before I stopped myself. I let it fall back to my side. No one noticed. There was nothing to notice. That was when my phone vibrated again. I did not want to look, but curiosity has a cruel way of winning when you are already hurt. I slid it out of my pocket and glanced down. Another photo from my brother. This one was wider. A group shot, people standing close together, arms around shoulders, laughing. My parents were right in the center. My dad held grilling tongs like a trophy. My mom leaned into him, smiling the way she only ever did when she felt admired. The caption was simple, "Wish you were here." I stared at the timestamp. It matched the moment we were lining up to walk toward the stage. Something twisted in my chest, not jealousy, something colder, recognition. They were not thinking about me at all. When my name was finally called, it felt surreal. Attorney Emily Harper echoed through the auditorium, clean and formal, detached from everything I was feeling inside. I walked forward under the lights, heart pounding but face steady. Muscle memory carried me. Shake hands, take diploma, smile for the camera. Somewhere in the back of the room, a professional cameraman scanned the audience, searching for proud parents to capture for the screen. He lingered for a second behind me, then moved on. There was nothing to find. I stepped off the stage and returned to my seat. Applause fading into the next name, the next family, the next celebration. Just like that, my moment was over. Not ruined, not dramatic, simply empty. After the ceremony, graduates spilled into the courtyard in a rush of color and sound. Flowers changed hands, arms wrapped tight, laughter cut through the air. Parents kissed foreheads and held faces like they could not quite believe their children were real. I stood off to the side, clutching my diploma tube, pretending to scroll through my phone so I would look occupied instead of alone. A woman I did not know stopped in front of me. She was older, maybe mid-50s, with kind eyes and a camera strap around her neck. "Are you waiting for your family?" she asked gently. I hesitated, then shook my head. "It is just me." Her expression shifted, surprise first, Then something heavier. "Would you like a photo anyway?" she asked. "You deserve one." I handed her my phone before I could talk myself out of it. She positioned me near the fountain, adjusted the angle, stepped back. "Congratulations, attorney," she said, after snapping a few pictures. The word hit harder than it should have. I thanked her, and turned away quickly before my face betrayed me. Later that night, back in my apartment, the silence felt louder than the auditorium ever had. I set my cap and gown over the back of a chair, dropped my keys on the counter, sat on the floor with my back against the couch, and finally let myself feel it. Not sadness, clarity. I opened social media and posted one of the photos the woman had taken. No filters, no hashtags, just a simple caption. "First attorney in the family." My parents could not make it. They had a brunch. The likes trickled in. Comments from classmates, professors, distant relatives, proud words from people who barely knew me. I watched for two names. They never appeared. If you have ever reached a milestone and realized the people you thought you were running toward were never standing at the finish line, you know what that night feels like. It is the moment when hope finally gives up, and once it does, everything that comes next becomes possible. The night after the ceremony, sleep did not come. I lay on my couch, staring at the ceiling, replaying the day in pieces that refused to line up neatly. The empty seats, the applause that belonged to everyone else, the photo from my brother that arrived exactly when my name was called. Every detail kept looping, not because it hurt too much, but because it finally made sense. I used to think the pain came from that one decision, the brunch, the excuse, the sentence my father delivered so calmly, like he was explaining the weather. But lying there in the dark, I realized something quieter and far more unsettling. This was not a new wound, it was an old one that had finally stopped pretending. Once you stop framing something as an accident, memory changes shape, it sharpens. Moments you brushed aside start lining up like evidence. I remembered my high school graduation, how my parents left early because my brother had a game across town. They hugged me quickly, promised dinner later, and never noticed when I watched them walk out. I told myself it was understandable. Schedules were hard. I remembered the scholarship ceremony in college, how my name was read out loud in a quiet room, while my seat in the audience stayed empty. My mom texted later that traffic was terrible, and my brother needed the car. I replied with a smiley face and told her it was fine. I remembered every time I brought home good news, and the response was measured, polite, brief, as if celebrating too much might set a dangerous precedent. At the time, I called it balance. I told myself I was mature, independent, not needy. Now I saw the truth. I had been training myself not to expect anything. That realization landed harder than the empty auditorium ever did. Because if this was a pattern, then the problem was never my effort. It was never my timing. It was never that I needed to try harder, or be quieter, or wait longer. It was that I had been assigned a role without my consent. The reliable one, the low-maintenance one, the daughter who would understand. My brother was celebrated. I was accommodated. There is a difference. The law degree was supposed to break that pattern. I thought achievement would finally shift the balance, that something so concrete and public would force a recalibration. I did not realize the scale had been fixed from the start. When you are raised this way, favoritism does not announce itself. It disguises itself as logic, as practicality, as who needs more attention right now. You are told your turn will come. It never does. Sometime around 2 in the morning, my phone buzzed again. Another message from my brother. No photo this time. "Mom says you are being really unfair." This was a misunderstanding. Misunderstanding. That word made me sit up. A misunderstanding implies confusion, mistakes, accident. What part of choosing to be somewhere else was unclear? I did not reply. I turned the phone face down again and noticed how natural that motion felt now, like my body had learned something my mind was still catching up to. For the first time, I asked myself a question I had avoided my entire life. What if this is not about them changing? What if this is about me finally believing them? That question scared me more than anger ever could. Because anger implies you still want something. Belief is different. Belief forces action. I walked into my bedroom and looked at the cap still resting on the chair. First attorney in the family. The words stared back at me like an accusation I had aimed at the wrong people. I took it off and folded it carefully, then placed it in the closet. Not hidden, just put away, like something that had served its purpose. The truth was uncomfortable but undeniable. Even at my highest moment, I was optional, and if I could accept that, I could stop organizing my life around hope that had never been earned. That night, something shifted in me, not loudly, not with a declaration, but with a quiet internal decision. I would stop waiting for permission to matter. I would stop shrinking my reactions so other people could stay comfortable. And I would stop confusing tolerance for love. If this story sounds familiar, if you have ever been the one expected to understand while everyone else is celebrated, leave a simple comment below. Just a number 1. You are not alone, even if it felt that way for a long time. I did not know yet what I was going to do with this clarity. I only knew that once you see the pattern, you cannot go back to pretending it does not exist. And that realization was the beginning of everything that came next. People assume that after a realization like that, the next step is confrontation, a long phone call, a dramatic message, a breaking point that ends with raised voices and slammed doors. That is how movies do it. That is not how this happened. What came next was quieter than anger and colder than sadness. It started the next morning when I woke up and noticed something strange. My chest did not feel heavy. For the first time since graduation day, my thoughts were clear, not hopeful, not confused, clear, the kind of clarity that does not ask questions anymore. I made coffee and sat at the small table by my window, watching the city wake up. Cars passed, people walked dogs. Life moved forward without asking how I felt about it. And suddenly, I understood something that changed the way I saw everything. No one was going to give me closure. There would be no apology that felt honest. No moment where my parents suddenly understood the weight of what they had done. No sentence that could rewind time and put them in those empty seats. Waiting for that would keep me exactly where I had always been. Waiting. So instead of reaching for my phone, I opened my laptop. I did not know exactly what I was looking for at first. I typed slowly. Legal name change process, state requirements, filing fees, court appearance. It felt surreal. Like I was researching something abstract, something theoretical. But the more I read, the steadier my hands became. People change their names for marriage, for divorce, for safety, for religion, for identity. I wanted to change mine for one reason only. I needed to stop carrying a name that reminded me who I was never allowed to be. This was not about erasing my parents. It was about erasing the version of myself who kept waiting for them to show up. The idea did not feel rebellious. It felt practical, almost boring. Paperwork, forms, deadlines, a clean process for a messy truth. I stood up and pulled a small box from the top shelf of my closet. Inside were old letters I had kept since childhood, birthday cards, notes tucked into envelopes with uneven handwriting. They were all from my grandmother. She was the only adult who never told me to be patient, never asked me to understand, never minimized my feelings. She showed up to recitals, school events, award ceremonies, even when it meant sitting alone in folding chairs while everyone else had families. Her last name was Collins. I said it out loud once. Emily Collins. The sound of it settled in my chest in a way Emily Harper never had. That was when I knew. This decision was not emotional. It was intentional. I printed the forms and filled them out slowly, carefully. My name at the top, my reason stated simply. Personal. When I signed the paperwork, my hand did not shake. That surprised me. I had expected fear, guilt, second thoughts. Instead, I felt something close to relief, like I was finally telling the truth in a language the world would respect. I mailed the forms that afternoon, certified, tracked, final. Then I did something else. I did not tell my parents. I did not announce it in the family group chat. I did not explain myself to my brother. I did not post anything online. I let silence do the work for once. In the days that followed, messages came in. Confused, light, casual. Did you get home safe? Are you okay? You have been quiet. I answered politely when I needed to, briefly, neutrally. I did not share what I was doing. Not because I was hiding, because I was done seeking approval. That is the part people misunderstand about boundaries. They think they are punishments. They are not. They are exits. A week later, I received a call from my father. His tone was careful, like he was stepping around something fragile. "Your mother is worried," he said. "You have been distant." I listened without interrupting. "You are not mad, are you?" he asked. This whole thing feels bigger than it needs to be. There it was again. Bigger than it needs to be. I realized in that moment that even now, even after everything, they still thought my reaction was the problem. Not their absence, not their choice. I ended the call politely and sat in my car afterward with the engine off, hands resting on the steering wheel, feeling strangely calm. That was when I understood the real shift had already happened. I was no longer trying to be seen by people who had trained themselves not to look. I was preparing to leave. If this part of the story feels familiar to you, if you have ever reached a moment where silence felt stronger than explanation, take a second and like this video. It tells me you understand what comes next. Because what I did after that did not happen out of anger. It happened out of clarity. And once clarity shows up, everything else becomes possible. People think changing your name is the dramatic part. That filing paperwork, standing in front of a judge, and signing away the name you were born with, is the moment everything explodes. But that is not how it feels from the inside. The truth is, the loud part is brief. The quiet part is what reshapes you. Once the forms were submitted, life did not pause. No thunder, no immediate consequences, just days passing like normal. And that was when the real work began. I started living as if the decision was already complete. I stopped explaining myself. I stopped volunteering updates. I stopped trying to manage how my absence might make them feel. That space was unsettling at first. When you grow up smoothing things over, silence feels wrong, like you forgot something important, like you owe someone reassurance. I kept catching myself reaching for my phone, ready to send a message that would soften the distance. Just checking in, just making sure everything was okay. Then I would stop. Because everything was okay for the first time. I began applying for jobs outside my city, far enough that dropping by was not an option. Close enough that I could still convince myself it was practical, not symbolic. Legal aid clinics, small firms, any place where my name would be read off a resume without family history attached to it. When I typed Emily Collins at the top of my applications, something strange happened. My shoulders relaxed. I had not realized how heavy my old name felt until I stopped carrying it. Packing my apartment took longer than it should have, not because there was so much stuff, but because of what the objects represented. Books stacked from years of school, notes scribbled during late-night study sessions, photos tucked into frames and drawers. The photos were the hardest. Every holiday had the same pattern, my brother in the center, my parents leaning toward him, me slightly off to the side, cropped at the shoulder, half smiling like I knew where I belonged. I placed most of them in a box and taped it shut. I did not throw it away. I labeled it before and slid it into the back of the closet. Not out of anger, out of honesty. In my new apartment, in a city where no one knew my family, I introduced myself differently. Hi, I am Emily. Just Emily. I waited for questions that never came. No one asked who my parents were. No one asked where I came from. They asked what I did, what I liked, what I thought. It felt unfamiliar and freeing at the same time. I started working at a small legal clinic. The pay was modest. The cases were heavy. People came in carrying problems that had been ignored for years. Family disputes, custody battles, estrangements no one wanted to name out loud. One evening after a long day, a colleague said something that stopped me cold. Parents always say they did their best, but no one asks the kids if it felt like enough. I laughed before I realized I was about to cry. That night, I opened my laptop and started writing. Not with a plan, not with an audience in mind, just words. I wrote about being the invisible child, about accomplishments that landed quietly, about being told not to be dramatic when something important was taken from you. I did not use names. I did not include locations. I wrote under a simple signature, E.C. The first post was raw and unpolished. When your parents skip your graduation on purpose. I wrote about empty chairs and cheerful excuses, about how neglect rarely looks cruel from the outside. I expected nothing to come of it, but people found it. Comments started appearing. This happened to me. I thought I was crazy. My family says I am too sensitive. Thank you for putting this into words. Each message hit me in a place I had kept locked for years. My pain was no longer isolated. It was recognizable. Weeks passed. The blog grew quietly. Shares, messages, stories from strangers who had lived parallel lives. I did not feel powerful. I felt responsible. Then the emails started. My mother first, short, tense. I think that article is about us. People are talking. My father next, angry, controlled. This is private family business. You are making us look bad. My brother last, defensive. You are ruining things for everyone. Sponsors are asking questions. Not once did any of them say, I am sorry we were not there. They were not hurt by what they did. They were hurt that other people could see it now. That realization sparked something complicated inside me. Not satisfaction, not guilt, confirmation. For the first time, the narrative was not theirs. They had always told the story. To relatives, to friends, to anyone who asked. I was emotional, sensitive, difficult. Now strangers were reading my version and nodding. The balance had shifted. I did not respond immediately. I sat with it, letting the weight of that moment settle. Because this was the part where the story could turn ugly if I let it. Instead, I kept writing, not to punish them, to finish telling the truth. Here is the question I want to leave you with, and I want you to answer honestly in the comments. If telling your story finally costs the people who hurt you their comfort, does that make you cruel or does it make you free? Read the comments. Talk to each other. This story is not just mine anymore. People think the moment you start telling the truth is the moment you feel relief. Like once your story is out there, your chest finally loosens and everything makes sense. That is not what happens. What actually happens is pressure. Because the truth does not just change how you see the past. It changes how other people respond when they realize they no longer control the story. The first sign came quietly. An unknown number called while I was at work. I let it ring. Then it called again. And again. I ignored it until a text appeared. Please call me. It is Mom. I stared at the screen longer than I should have. For years I had waited for messages like that. Messages that meant urgency, importance, need. But something about this one felt wrong. Not warm, not remorseful, tight, controlled. I did not call back. That night I checked my email and found another message. This one longer, more careful. My mother wrote that people were asking questions, that friends had sent her links, that relatives were confused. She said your father is very upset. She said your brother is under a lot of pressure right now. She said we never meant to hurt you. That last sentence sat alone in the middle of the paragraph like it was supposed to fix everything. Never meant to hurt you. I read it twice and realized what she did not say. She did not say we were wrong. She did not say we should have been there. She did not say we failed you. She said they did not mean to. Intention, instead of accountability. The next voicemail came from my father. His voice was calm but sharp around the edges, the way it always got when he felt challenged. This is going too far, he said. Families have problems. You do not air them out in public. That article paints us as villains. You need to take it down. There it was. Not concern. Control. I sat on my couch listening to the message again, noticing how my body reacted. No panic. No guilt. Just a steady awareness that something fundamental had shifted. For the first time, their disappointment did not feel like a threat. More messages followed. From my brother. From an aunt I barely spoke to. From family friends who suddenly remembered my number. You are hurting your parents. This should have stayed private. You only hear one side of the story. I noticed how none of them asked if what I wrote was true. They already knew. What scared them was not the lie. It was the exposure. At work the next day, I showed the messages to a colleague I trusted. She read them quietly, then looked up at me and said something that landed harder than anything else that week. They are not reaching out because they miss you. They are reaching out because this is costing them something. That sentence reframed everything. Growing up, consequences never applied upward. My parents made choices. I adjusted. My brother was prioritized. I understood. My role was always to absorb the impact quietly, so the system could keep functioning. Now the system was under pressure, and suddenly they wanted me back in place. I did not respond right away. I let the messages stack up, not out of spite, out of clarity. I needed to know what they would say when silence did not soothe them. Eventually my mother sent another text. We are desperate. Not we are sorry. Not we hurt you. Desperate. I closed my phone and leaned back, staring at the ceiling of my apartment. That word told me everything I needed to know. They were not afraid of losing me. They were afraid of losing their image. The next email came from a journalist. They had read my writing. They covered family estrangement and generational harm. They wanted to talk. Anonymous if I preferred. They said my story reflected a pattern many people were afraid to name. I read the email twice. This was the point of no return. Because I knew if I said yes, the story would grow legs. It would move further away from the version my parents had controlled for decades. And once that happened, I could not pull it back. My phone buzzed again. My mother calling. I let it go to voicemail. That night I sat with two open screens, her missed calls on one, the journalist email on the other. I thought about the girl I used to be, the one who swallowed disappointment because she did not want to cause trouble, the one who learned early that being agreeable was safer than being honest. Then I thought about the empty seats at my graduation, how quiet they were, how final. If I answered the phone now just to calm them down, who would I be betraying? That was the moment the balance tipped. I replied to the journalist with a single sentence. Yes, I am willing to talk. I did not tell my parents. I did not warn them, not because I wanted revenge, but because I was done negotiating the truth. Within days, the calls intensified. The tone shifted from concern to anger, from anger to accusation. How could you do this to us? After everything we have done, you are tearing this family apart. Each message assumed the same thing. That I was responsible for holding everything together, that my silence had been part of the agreement, but I had never signed that contract. What they were feeling now was not injustice, it was consequence, and for the first time in my life, I did not rush to soften it. If you have ever been blamed for breaking something that only functioned because you stayed quiet, you know this moment. It is when you realize the damage was already there. You just stopped covering it up. The truth did not destroy my family. It revealed it. And once that door opened, there was no closing it again. People expect the final chapter of a story like this to end with shouting, with doors slammed and voices raised and someone finally saying the perfect sentence that wins the argument forever. That is not how this ended. The real ending was quieter, harder, and permanent, in a way anger never is. The meeting happened on a Tuesday afternoon at a cafe, halfway between my new city and the town I grew up in. Neutral ground, public. No hiding. My mother chose the place and arrived early. My father came 10 minutes late, like he always did when he wanted control, without saying it out loud. When I walked in, my mother stood up immediately. Her face was tired, older than I remembered. For a split second I almost hugged her out of habit. Muscle memory is dangerous like that. I stopped myself, and sat across from them instead. We ordered coffee we barely touched. My mother started first. "We are under attack," she said quietly. "Ever since that article, people have been judging us. Your father is furious. Your brother is losing business. We never imagined you would do this to us. Do this to us." I listened without interrupting. Not because I was afraid, because I finally understood something. If I spoke too soon, they would turn this into a debate, and I was done debating my own reality. My father leaned forward. "Families have problems," he said. "You do not take them to the internet. That is betrayal." I took my phone from my bag and slid it across the table. On the screen was a screenshot from graduation day. My message in the family chat. "Today I became an attorney. You chose brunch over being there. I will not forget that." Below it my mother's reply. "We said we would celebrate later. Why are you making drama out of this?" And beneath that my father's voice message transcribed. "Do not be dramatic. It is just a ceremony." "Is any of this false?" I asked. They went quiet. "You are twisting things," my mother finally said. "We were proud of you." "Proud in theory," I replied. "Not in action." My father exhaled sharply. "You are making us look like monsters." I did not raise my voice. I did not smile. I just told the truth. "I did not make you look like anything. I described what happened. You are not angry because I lied. You are angry because other people can see it now." My mother's eyes filled with tears. "So what do you want?" she asked. "You want us to apologize publicly. You want us to say we failed." I thought about that question for a long time before answering. "I wanted you to show up," I said. "That was it. When it mattered. When there were no photos to fix it later. You did not. And when I finally said that hurt, you called me dramatic." My father shook his head. "You are blowing one event out of proportion." "This is not about one event," I said. "This is about a lifetime of being optional." My graduation was just the moment I stopped pretending it was accidental. There was a long silence. The kind that makes other tables uncomfortable. Good. I wanted witnesses this time. You have made your point, my father said stiffly. So now what? You come home, we move on. You are still our daughter. That sentence used to own me. Now it sounded empty. No, I said. I am not coming home. My mother's breath caught. You cannot mean that. I reached into my bag and placed a folder on the table. Inside were copies of my legal documents. Court order, updated identification, professional registration. My name is Emily Collins, I said calmly. That is the name on my work, on my writing, on my life. You do not get to pull me back into a role that nearly erased me. My father stared at the papers like they were an insult. You think changing your name changes blood, he asked. It does not change blood, I said. It changes access. My mother reached for my hand. We can fix this, she whispered. We will apologize. Just do not throw away your family. I gently pulled back. You cannot fix something you refuse to admit was broken. I did not throw away my family. I accepted what you showed me and adjusted my life accordingly. My father said I would regret this, that I was selfish, that I would come crawling back one day. I stood up and picked up my bag. Maybe I will regret it, I said, but I already regret every year I spent begging for scraps of love from people who could not sit in a chair and clap for me. I walked out of that cafe without looking back. In the months that followed, the messages slowed. Anger turned into guilt. Guilt turned into silence. Through relatives I heard that my brother complained about unfair treatment, that my parents told people I had been manipulated. None of that mattered anymore. My revenge was not exposure. It was absence. I built a life under a name they do not get to claim. My clients know me as someone who listens. My friends know me as someone who shows up. I will never choose convenience over the people I love. Sometimes late at night, I think about those empty seats at graduation, and for the first time, they do not hurt. They remind me why I left. If you are still here listening to this, it means part of you understands. It means you know what it is like to outgrow a family that only loved you when it was easy. If you want to hear more stories like this, stories about choosing yourself without apology, about walking away and building something better, subscribe to this channel now. This is not just a story, it is a reminder. Staying silent is not loyalty, and walking away is sometimes the first real act of love you ever give yourself.